What's up, guys? Belair here. We have Dano, aka BigFan of fanrl.com, on the podcast today. Old friend of the pod, old friend of mine within the RLCS, going back to our Wave Dash podcast days. We had fun with this one. This is a long episode. It's the RLCS stock market extravaganza. We dressed up for the occasion and just had a blast. So I hope you guys enjoy this one as much as we do. Gotta stick around for the mac and cheese draft at the end, of course. As always, guys, really hope you enjoy this episode. All of Dano's information will be down below. Let's get on over to the interview. Hello, everyone. It's me, BelleairBaller of Baller and Baller and Associates.
Damn.
Here with BigFan. Say hello to the people, BigFan.
What's going on? It's great to be here, Belair.
We're on late tonight, but it's actually, we just had to wait until the market closed. As you can see, we were really excited to do this, so we didn't even change out of our trading outfits today. We're just heading right from the stock market, where I think we both lost. Did we say $500 million today?
375 million.
Yeah, and unfortunately, 370 of that was your losses, which is unfortunate. I didn't have a great day either, but you know, it's you win some and you lose some. Maybe we'll bounce back tomorrow. I still have so much GameStop that I just don't know what to do with myself. But we
gotta
figured
get out
we
of
would,
that, man.
yeah, you know, eventually, my partners are on my butt about it. But you know, I just have a hunch. But today we are here post Birmingham Major to, look at the Rocket League stock market and just kind of get a finger on the pulse of what's going up, what's going down. One thing that I have learned is that in order to be a good trader, if you're not doing something active with your hands, I always keep them like this. I think that that's actually critical to being successful. Real quick, let's just start up top with a market summary. Just kind of, take a glance around the scene here. Who's going up, who's going down? And if you have any that you would like to toss in, of course. But first, if you are somebody who bought Ultimate stock before the major, you got to be really, really happy with yourself. I can't remember where you landed. I was probably more critical than most about the Ultimates heading into this event. Wasn't really sure how Chronic was going to gel. Was concerned as to whether or not First Killer would be the emotional, evocative leader that they needed from him. And they checked a ton of boxes on the way to the grand finals there. So a big win for them. Did you make any money off of Ultimates? What was your stance going in?
I did not. Fourth Killer was not on my buy list at the time. He's beaten those allegations.
Mm-hmm.
The Ultimates, I believe me and you talked before this, and we said if the Ultimates played in this major 100 times, they would win one of them.
Yeah,
And when it came down to finals day, I was doodling my pants. I'll be honest with you. I was thinking I was so wrong about this team. Now they got 4-0, so I felt the slightest bit better, but for them to make it that far was shocking, and I'm here for it. Listen, that was incredible to watch. I definitely didn't buy any of the Ultimate stock beforehand. If anything, I was probably selling it. So yeah, anybody that going into it had the Ultimates finishing top 4, good for you. And for anybody that hadn't made them grand finals, you're insane, and I'm never going to talk to you.
I can't believe anybody would have picked it in their right mind, but here they were, and I felt like they really turned it around. Like that Vitality series, they go down 0-2, they take a timeout, they haven't scored at all, they get scored on within the first like 20 seconds, and then here comes Chronic of all people, who hasn't done essentially anything for them offensively, at least from like a counting perspective, all split long with this full field off the sidewall like skim into the back of the net. And it's like, okay, I guess Chronic is online. And then from there, they kind of roll over Vitality. But even before that, the Falcons win. I was looking at it and I was like, I felt like it was more of a Falcons loss than an Ultimates win, just because
Hmm.
Falcons looked completely discombobulated on the defensive end. But it ended up kind of being the momentum boost that they needed to get over that hump, to get over Vitality, to, of course, beat NRG in the waning moments there of Game 7, where it just like the seas opened for First Killer. I was more surprised by the run than I was by them getting 4-0'd by a Carmine Core who looked just completely unstoppable.
Just the best in the world. Yeah, you can't fault any team for getting 4-0'd by Carmine Corp. It was their day. A perfect 8-0 semifinals and grand finals. So yeah, the Ultimates to make it that far is incredible. A great list of teams to go through as well as getting through NRG,
Yeah,
which have had their number the entire split.
it's true, and it really it felt like First Killer was the best player in that series. I felt like Beast Mode had a pretty underwhelming event, all things
Hmm.
considered, just because of the caliber that we expect from him. We might talk about him a little later in some of our portfolio action here. But you know that was really surprising, and if we would have gotten Carmine Core 4-0, Furia, and Ultimates. Out of the two, who do you think would have won if Ultimates and Furia had seen each other on Champ Sunday?
I honestly, Ultimates had the hot hand. I would have gone with Ultimates. Um, looking at Furia, Yan got beaten that 1v1. I gotta say, if we're going a little bit off topic real quick, I'm surprised that they didn't do like this 1v1 tournament either beforehand or, you know, after the tournament or something like that. To do it kind of mid tournament, I thought was a little bizarre because, I mean, Yan loses the tournament. Now, if he would have won, maybe he would have like rode on some like I'm the best in the world and like I'm gonna play the best, and he
The
would have
reverse
played
sweep.
better. But for them to do the 1v1 tournament, Yan loses against Moxie, which shout out to Moxie, but you got to think that hurt the mental a little bit, and you could
Are
see he
you
was kind
saying
of
that
getting
it affected the
frustrated.
mental of the 3v3?
I think it did, and I'm just saying I'm surprised they would like when they announced they were doing it. I was surprised just at the timing of it all.
You
So
know, I gotta
um,
say, I had the same thought with the 1v1, but I was like, am I an idiot by thinking that this would affect Yan? But like it's the same as people being like scrims don't matter at all. I'm like, they don't matter at all? Like none?
right.
You can't take anything from scrims? Like, you know, I think that maybe if it was just like a back and forth and it's like Yan's like, what are you gonna do? But is there like a pinch? Is there like just a microscopic amount of me that is like the way in which he lost, like the reverse sweep and then losing on Champs Field? Like, does that
Right.
dampen the spirits a little bit? I think you might be onto something. But you said
I
it,
think,
not me. So
yeah,
people can't be mad at me. That's you said
yeah.
it, you know.
Even if it affects it, his gameplay 1%, I mean, that's just 150 that could lead to a goal the other way, or he could hit a double that he normally would hit, but all of a sudden he misses because he was just the smallest bit thrown off. So I think even just a very slight mental change could really alter some results. So
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
and
we'll see.
anybody who bought Carmine Core stock preseason, congratulations. That is paid off for you. I was purchasing Vitality stock in bundles
Hmm.
before the season. Um, I gotta say the numbers are a little down. I'm catching a little bit of heat from my constituency. I'm getting a lot of nasty emails. What are you doing with our money? We're gonna pull out of this fund. Baller and baller are idiots. But you know, you don't get to wear suits like this just by not knowing anything. You know what I mean? So you know, I'm still gonna hold on to that vitality stock. Speaking of Furia, anybody who bought Lost, I don't think that the market had a lot of movement beforehand. I know a lot of people were buying Furia stock beforehand, but Lost in particular, you got to be really happy with yourself because I felt like he was one of the most impactful players on both ends of the pitch throughout the whole tournament.
For sure. Lost look great. There's a YouTuber that I watch. His name's Belair, and he's done some breakdowns of this guy. And in a recent video, he did the Lost POV. Um, I love Lost. I thought he played very well. You know who I wasn't impressed by though?
Who's that?
Jorfinho.
Ooh.
In previous tournaments, I've been like, man, this guy's underrated. Wow, he's kind of the third man, the glue. Like this guy's awesome. Obviously, Yan and Loss are so mechy and go crazy, but I didn't think Jorfinho had the best tournament. So he might be on my sell list.
I felt like he was lackluster, especially I can recall like a couple big moments where it was like the sea opens up and it's like Drufinho, take the shot and sink it, and it either would be like not like a well placed shot that was easily saved, like down the middle of the net. I think maybe I'm getting my memories mixed up here, but I remember I did they play Complexity? I think I think that's correct because there was one where like there was a demo right in front of the goal, and like Raise Bull is just like sitting like no momentum, no boost, literally just like completely stagnant in the middle of the goal, and he just like puts it directly on him and
Hmm.
Raise Bull saves it, and I was like, ah. Or even like when they were in the playoffs against Carmine Core, and this a lot of this is like Carmine Core doing so well, but they were like because Carmine Core is just on you so quick. And so anytime you get like a bit of like a little breathing room, you're like, oh, I got to get this out of here right now. Or like, I got to shoot this as quick as possible. And
Hmm.
it affected Yan for sure. Like his shooting was not perfect, but Drafinio as well. There was a couple where it was just like, it was like you like hit the ball with like a wet noodle and it would just like roll towards the goal. And it's like, well, you know,
Yeah.
could have wanted that one back. But I felt the same way you did, but I had my opinion switched ever so slightly when I watched Edit Tim's uh 50 top 50 saves from the Birmingham Major, and like six of them were from Drufinio, like excellent goal line, like crossbarring out saves.
Hmm.
But yeah, I agree with you. I feel like they're at this weird spot where they just have to all have it going. And Yan and Drafinio really kind of were not totally up to par. I think you're
The only
probably,
thing
yeah, go ahead.
I'll say about him being on the top 50 saves, in my opinion, people that are farming saves are just out of position. That's all I'm gonna say. I think people can make great save highlights, but in reality, you're kind of camping a net or you're just rushing back and then you make a last second save. But like, I think that's a sign of somebody who, for the most part, is not in position correctly. If you're
I
getting that many saves.
I agree with you, and I walked away from the major trying to like because defense is always so hard to like calculate, you know what I mean? A lot of our counting stats are offensive, and so it's like easier to kind of know like, oh man, Nalpo's so good because he scores a goal a game or whatever, but like defensively it's a little harder. And I was thinking about like the best defenders in the world. Jorfinho's teammate Lost, I feel like is on my list, just like within the encapsulation of this major. Daniel, I thought was just excellent. His like read
Hmm.
of like just no, he just has like a sixth sense for it. Rawas, of course, is incredible. Vatira, honestly, Drali should probably be considered on the list as well. You almost it feels like cheating. It's like being like, who's the best? Who's the MVP? It's like, oh, or who's the best player? It's like LeBron, and it's like, and he's the defensive player of the year. It's like, all right, like we can't give him everything, but like
Right.
Drali's so good on both ends, and a region that was not able to do basically anything defensively was OCE. There was a lot of people. Geo, if you're listening, was a culprit of this. Trying to buy some finally OCE top eight stock. It's going to happen this time.
Hmm.
Really disappointing for them getting double Goomba stomped there by Luminosity to get eliminated. Um,
Ooh,
how are you feeling about OCE beforehand, and how are you feeling about the region now?
I didn't think OCE had their best showing. They've definitely looked better at other tournaments. They've competed more. I was disappointed. I got a few favorite players over there. I mean, we can't, if we're going to talk about this tournament, we got to talk about the wild card versus Carmine
Oh my gosh.
game 5. Like, I was at work, but it was like, what is happening right now? Like, what am
Yeah.
I missing? I need to turn this on and miss some work because I need to watch like whatever this game 5 is going to be. So, I mean, that was an incredible start for OCE, but from there it didn't exactly pan out. But yeah, overall, like I didn't have super high expectations. I think top 8 is reasonable for them. Um, Unfortunately, they didn't get there, but like for them to finish, whatever 12th and 15th, I think not the best showing. They got some good players over there.
I
I like,
agree.
I like Hunter over there.
Yeah.
Hunter seems like a solid player. Yeah.
When we left the world championship, I put out a video about Hunter being like, this guy's the next thing. Like, he's so good. And since then, my expectations have tempered a little bit.
Hmm.
He, they did not get a lot of offense going, that Chiefs squad, on the entire event. Hunter, 4 of 16 shooting, 16 shots total.
Woo.
Not a lot.
Yikes.
But in their defense, they went up against some really high powered offenses. They opened up against Furia, and then they
Hmm.
played like uh
Twisted
Twisted Minds
Minds.
or somebody. Yeah. So
Yeah.
they were, shelling up a little bit over there. But then you got to look at like the luminosity loss is a tough one. Of course, it goes super deep and it's really close. But I feel like Fiber is the player on that team who stands out to me. But of course, with all of them, OCE is kind of fun because when you're looking at Carmine Core and it's like, what do Carmine Core do wrong? You like really have to focus, and it's like little micro things that they could do better. But like with OCE, it's like Fiber is so good offensively, but he can be really bad. Like defensively, there are a couple where he's like too far up, and then the ball starts to go over his head, and he's like, oh, 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 he's like leaning backwards, like trying to like
Yeah.
get to it. So like
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
positional things, it's a lot easier to like see some of that with OCE. But yeah, that wild card, I mean, talk about perfectly being with your name. They take the number 1
Hmm.
seed and the 16 seed,
Yeah.
the
To
distance
game
in 1 and 2.
5.
It was, but
uh,
like Torsas was on fire in that Carmine Core series. Um, I just it was so bizarre to kind of see where they were going with that. Um, were there any other market summary teams or players that you wanted to talk about here briefly? Who are the big winners and losers from people in the market who bought or sold before the event?
you know, Geek obviously coming in,
Yeah.
um, their stock probably jumped a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously coming off of like a huge tournament, regional 3. But they made top 8, which I thought was impressive. I think a lot of people didn't have them inside their top 8. So, if anything, I feel like you might have moved up your Geek stock a little bit. You might have made a little bit of dough there, which beforehand I would have been like, they're not making top 8. So,
Yeah.
congrats to anybody that bought that. Um, Team Secret, I know a lot of people love the Sam region. And they got a few good teams over there, but like Team Secret go out in 13 and 14th place.
Not looking
So a,
good
a
either.
horrible showing from them. So
Yeah.
you really lost the bag if you had Team Secret.
I put some money into Swift and did not do super well. But luckily I didn't lose across the board because I put some money into Gen G and I made and lost no money. I don't think the stock moved at all. It just plateaued.
Yeah.
It was exactly kind of what we expected. Like, of course, there's the piece of it where like, at least for me, it's always such a tough team to like talk about and analyze because like I think to do this well, you have to be critical when needed and also like positive when needed. But like there's something about this Gen G team where it's just like I want them to do well. Like I look at a player like Cheese and I'm just like, I really want Cheese to succeed. And the same with Magic Bear, like especially in this major. And like the face cams, he seemed super loose. He seemed like he was having a good time, which I think is like it's good to see them enjoy this ride because you kind of know like your expectations are tempered. It's not like they're coming in being like time to lift the trophy.
Right.
But yeah, when it's all said and done, I think Gen G ended up like exactly where we kind of thought that they would.
Yeah, for sure. If
Um,
you bought any Nupo stock beforehand, I think Nupo is a bit of like the Fang stock. If it's a buy and hold, and you saw it creep up probably a good 3, 4 to 5% from beginning to the end of the tournament. Nupo looked great. If we're talking about stats, he finished second in shooting percentage, 35.6% coming in, and second in goals as well, behind Drawley.
yeah.
1.08 goals per game. So Nupo looked incredible, even though his team, didn't have the best finish overall. I thought he just looks like clearly one of the top players in the world.
I see you consulting your graphs over there. It's all about the
Mm-hmm.
candlesticks. You're, thinking about the deltas and whatnot. His
Mm-hmm.
teammate, by the way, Atomic, led the event in tally, which is goals plus assists. I think he was like 1.8 per game, which is pretty ridiculous. That team's just like a track meet. Like, we're not gonna play any defense. Good luck trying to score and put it on net. Like, we're just going to breathe down your neck the whole time. Nalpo's so
Yeah.
fast. He's a fun watch
Twisted
for sure.
Minds, first in the tournament in goals per game, 2.75. We compare that to a team like Carmine who had 2.2. So, yeah, huge amount of offense. But then you also look at they also had one of the most goals against per game. So
Yeah.
just electric series if you're watching those.
And maybe it's a little, they're kind of doing the thing where like you have the investor meeting and you're telling them like, oh, we have all of these assets. They're massaging things a little bit. I think they lit up a couple of teams that were like not, you know, super impressive defensively. Maybe you can boost the numbers a little bit there. But yeah, that Twisted Minds, like that Vitality series to start things out. Um, it was tough, like getting up and like doing the stuff you need to start your day and then getting prepared for the LAN at like 10 a.m. East Coast time.
Yeah.
But to start things out with that Twisted Minds Vitality round one, where it's just like Zen versus Naupo, like jumping off the top of the cage on each other. Incredible watch. And it seemed like, did you see that it almost looked like they were considering making a move? Achilles reported it, but they've opted to stick together for the next split.
Twisted Minds has?
That's correct.
Interesting. It'll
And
be interesting to see how that affects the stock.
I agree. Will there be some volatility that will come
Hmm.
because of this? Only time will tell. We'll have to see what Jim Cramer has to say about it in the near future. Okay. Do you want to hit a couple of these little ones that we have here? We're going to talk about, of course, some IPOs. Everybody loves to get in on the action early. Some penny stocks. Also, we're going to talk about just our portfolios in general, how we're
Yes.
diversifying our assets. BigFan, is there a place that you would like to start?
Let's start with the IPOs.
Let's do it. Initial public offering, unless I'm an idiot. I think that's what it stands for. It could also stand for instant potato oatmeal, but you be the judge. Initial public offering. This, of course, is when you buy a stock as soon as it hits the public market. I've got eviscerated by these a couple of times in real life, but
Mm-hmm.
you learn those lessons in the real world and lose actual money so that you can gain clout in Rocket League. So I feel pretty confident about my IPO choices this time around. You, of course, are a guest of honor. If you would like to draft your first IPO player, and within the context of this, we're talking about a player who is yet to make a major that you want to invest in, that you see a strong future with.
I think I'm going to start off with a hot stock, something that's rising every single day. You might as well start off with Kofor.
Ooh.
The Kofor stock has been incredible. You got the casters on his side. If you ever watch the games, it is so caster biased, it's insane. Kofor will make a touch on a backboard, and they will say, "Did you see that? Did you see the touch on the backboard?" So, Kofor stock's incredible. He's playing out of his mind. I think he's in a role right now where it suits him well.
Mm.
He's currently, you look around the industry at the other stocks, and currently Kofor is just in a prime position.
He is.
I think we're going to see this one, move around quite a bit. We could see Kofor potentially shopped around, but this is a stock that it's been hot, and I think it will continue to be hot.
Severely undervalued. I of course was out on the street, chain smoking cigarettes and making calls on both of my cell phones, and all of the guys around me were also talking about Kofor. So it's getting some buzz on Wall Street. It's going to take some time for it to reach, your average Joe out there. But you and I are so deep into the weeds that I agree. Kofor is definitely somebody who's rising. Preseason for me, it was like, what are Nine Lives going to do here? Because you're filling in for LJ, who was like super heliocentric, like really heavy goal participation. If they were going to win, it was because he was looking good offensively. Like he was the engine for them. And it was like,
Yep.
okay, so Kofor's coming in. We don't have a lot of film on him. It seems like he's a player who's like not really gonna be filling in that role right away. So maybe like Chicago's gonna step into something different. But no, Kofor was like, don't worry, guys, I got it. Was a complete workhorse for them. And now he's going to this space station gaming situation here where Frosty was doing a lot of the same stuff that Kofor is, at least from accounting perspective, but just with way lower efficiencies across the board. So I agree, like space station gaming are in a great position. The question with them and the whole point of this IPO is, can they overcome the, calluses that are being created here by all of these young players yet to reach a major here? Of course, Nine Lives trip at the finish line there. Space Station Gaming were so volatile that they couldn't make it. But do you feel like SSG, like the Kofor pickup, is the thing that's going to move them to the major?
I do. I really do. He at times, many games he looks like the best player on the field, but at times he looks like the best player in the tournament. So, I mean, NA is looking a little soft right now. I'll be honest. We need to toughen up. Even though, hey, 2 teams in the top 4.
Hey,
let's just say that. Who had the most teams in the top 4? Which region? NA. But I'm just saying, Kofor, I think, he's looking great. I think he does have a chance to make the major this season. Who do you got on your IPO pick list?
Well, I had a couple of names. Kofor was on there. I think it's pretty easy. Like, I think if you were doing this exercise and polling 100 people, I feel like the 2 names that you would probably get the most are Kofor and Eugen, who, of course,
100%.
just finds a huge new opportunity here with Gentlemates Alpine. Matt, formerly of Ascend, accidentally leaked some scrims there. My understanding is that his ball chasing account just auto uploads his replays. So
yeah,
a little bit of an oopsie there, but thank you very much. But Eugen, one of those players who, like, I mean, the needle on him, he's looking like Bitcoin stock over here. A year ago, he's on Nordschleife, just kind of hanging out, not really doing anything. And then all of a sudden, this start point team, I thought that they were probably going to be like 6 to 8 range. That's where they ended up being, but they were a much more dangerous 6 to 8 than I thought they would be. And a huge part of that was Eugen.
100%. And now moving to
no. He was on start point, not 100%.
Oh, sorry about that.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. Now Eugen is going to Gentlemates. It is a certain on Liquipedia that he's going to Seiko and Juicy. So this is going to be a team that I'm hoping can bring the Gentlemates name back to glory, like what it was previously. Obviously they had some devastating moves in the offseason, but I think that this really is going to be great for not only Eugen, but the team as well. I think this team now, all of a sudden, I think it's funny because you're replacing Radosin, which, if you asked just a season ago, was like a top 10 player in the world. Yep. But where did he go? And so now it's going to breathe some new life, and I'm excited to see it. I think this is like a stock that, like, if you're not buying the Eugen stock now, like, you're really missing out. This is probably the stock of the year.
I think it's a huge one because this is an excellent opportunity, and he's kind of in a situation where Gentlemates, at least like if you look at last season and what they were doing in the first split, they're one of those teams that they don't have a style that like requires you to like really show up and do a ton from like a counting perspective. Like they're a team who spend a ton of time in the midfield, and they're not necessarily allowing a lot of goals. They're not scoring a lot of goals. They're like a less effective version of what we see from NRG at these majors, where it's like, look, we're not scoring any goals at all. We're in like the lowest percentile with those, but also we have the most effective defense. And Gentlemates are kind of doing, they were like a worse version almost of like what Ultimates did super well in this tournament, where it's not like Ultimates were lighting the world on fire with how many shots that they were taking. It's not like they were holding like really intense pressure like a Falcons or a Carmine core. They were super impactful as just being solid defensively, rotating well, and then they were the strongest counterattacking team that we had. And like when you add Eugen, who I feel like his superpower is his mechanical ability on the ball to take things solo, when you have him and Seiko on both sides, and you have Juicy who can kind of be that glue and fit in, this team just like makes a lot of more sense. And they just had to make a move. Like I feel like the Radosin situation, there was so much pressure from the beginning, and it's kind of like when if you're playing basketball and you're like, okay, the score is tied and there's no time left and I have two free throws at the line, and all of a sudden you like try and like get it perfectly into, it's like, no, just like shoot the ball and you'll make it. And
Right.
Gentlemates were totally not shooting the ball. They were like trying to play Rocket League as opposed to just playing Rocket League. You know what I mean?
Mm, That's a quote I'll never forget that. They were trying to play Rocket League, but not play Rocket League.
It's,
I understand.
I actually
Some people,
tweet,
hey, you know what? Some people might not understand it. I get it though.
most people wouldn't, but they're not invested how you and I are. It's weird. I did tweet they were trying to play Rocket League, not play Rocket League, and no responses.
Mm.
Maybe it was just a little too highbrow for people. But yeah, Eugen is mine. Do you have any other IPO names that you have on your board?
I would pick a few other players, but I think we're talking about players that can actually make the major.
Yes.
So those are the only two I'm gonna say for now.
I agree. And I'll just throw in for what it's worth. I think Reveal is another name here that I had on my list. Kofer's teammate. Reveal was my favorite player from SSG previously, and the pairing of him and Kofer could be something here. All right. Do you want to talk about penny stocks?
Yes.
So, what was your thinking? What was your framework on this exercise? The way that I was looking at it was names that we have kind of known, but their value has dropped so substantially that if you were to just like ask people like, "Hey, who are you buying or selling?" they probably wouldn't even really consider. They're just like
Right.
very low value
Not
players.
even on the radar.
Yeah.
Oh, some people are like, oh, I forgot they're still playing.
They're
Oh,
just
that guy's on a roster. Oh, I guess. Oh, I've heard of him maybe once. Something like that.
sitting in the attic collecting dust.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's really, you can get in on this action for whatever you would want. So, what is the first name that you have?
I just said his name. I'm gonna say Radosin. I mean, you talk about
Dang it.
somebody who's just on Vitality,
Yeah.
and uh, like I said, I think last year he was thrown around as a top 10 player, top 15 player in the world, and now it's like, well, he's gonna be a free agent, and he's
Hmm.
French, so it's like you're guaranteed to
We.
make something. You're gonna make a major for sure. Um, yeah, we'll see what happens with Radosin. Yeah, not the best fit on Gentlemates, but that's the thing. I think with like a lot of these players where it's like they go from one team to a different one, their roles change, and with that becomes, I think, a little bit more of thinking about playing Rocket League.
Mhm.
Playing Rocket League, but not playing Rocket League.
But yeah, that's You should write that down. That's a good one.
Yeah, so I'm excited to see what happens with Radosin. Um, I'm gonna let you go next because there's a few other ones that I'm excited to
Well,
talk about.
if I could just yes and you on Radosin really quick, are we sure that Radosin is just going to find another opportunity here and return to the major stage? Because I was thinking about this, especially when we got our field for Birmingham, where it's like you would just feel like all the players that we're seeing are the players that we're going to have for the next couple of seasons, but it can kind of move a little bit quicker than you kind of think that it would. Like I think about a player like Itachi, and I'm not saying that Itachi's not going to make any more majors. I certainly think that he is going to. He's still in the
Hmm.
prime of his career and is an excellent player. One of the first names that would be off my board if I was starting to build a team. But with that being said, like the best days are behind you a little quicker than you think they might be, just based on how often young players come into our game and rise to the top very quickly. Of course, you only have 3 players per team. It's not like something like the NBA where you have this deep bench and you can kind of be Tracy McGrady at the end of your career and be like, sure, I'll join the San Antonio Spurs and play 4 minutes a game and see if I can win a title. Like it's 3 players. And Radosin, I feel like he's going to I don't know what the likely path for him to get back here is because all the top French rosters at this point in time, the established talent is there and they're just going to be grabbing these new, young, up and coming players. There's always a wealth of it coming out of France.
Hmm. Yeah.
And on the other side of it, I don't really see Europe is so strong that it's hard for me to envision the roster that Radosin is going to cobble together like 2 young players, him being the veteran and be like, yes, that is a top 4 team in Europe. So I'm not totally out on Radosin. He was on my list of penny stocks as well. But I guess what I'm saying is just like, I'm not convinced that Radosin is just going to be this name that we're going to be seeing at majors because it's a super selective group. You know what I mean?
Right. Fair enough. Yeah. And we've seen that with, NA players as well. You've seen like the squishy muffins, the players that at one point, world champions, but then all of a sudden, a couple seasons later, it's like realistically, they're just not up to par anymore, and maybe they were just on a great team at one point. So yeah, that's a fair take. I want to see who you got next though, because I'm excited to get to a couple of these penny stock players.
Well, I think you and I are scraping the barrel here pretty early in like a really effective way. We're getting a lot of bang for our buck because the first name on
Hmm.
my list is Alpha 54,
Beautiful.
the
That is
two
beautiful.
former
That's who I
Vitality
was gonna
players here.
say. And French. Two
And
Frenchmen.
French. You know, look, Alpha 54 still under contract. My understanding of the situation is that he's not just going to start up some like, you know, like some team where it's just like he's not going to be on a 9 lives. There has to be an org that is going to buy out the contract that will allow
Right.
him to go play for them. With that being said, the thing that differs from him and a player like Extra, who kind of got caught in like contract jail there, is it seems like Alpha is not only like eager and open to the idea of going to a new team, but also he is staying very, very high quality amongst the best players in the world. A better way to say that is like if you look at the twos leaderboard, basically any time over the last 5 months, Alpha has been a mainstay in like the top 30. Even when the new season started right before the major, I was looking, I was curious. Of course, Furia were playing a billion games beforehand for rank twos, but Alpha, sneaky like 6 to 8 range in the rank 2 leaderboards. So
Wow.
he's still putting in the time, still grinding, and I guess the question is just who is the org who's going to hop in and buy him out because we are only a few seasons removed from him probably signing a massive deal with winning the world championship and the spring major back to back.
Yeah. An extremely valuable player that's just in the waiting right now.
Mm-hmm. He's on
It's
ice.
it's it's comes down to contracts because it's like, yeah, who's willing to pay that price? I think somebody's out there.
I think so too. And that's the
And
thing about penny stocks. You could buy them and it could end up not turning into anything because it's a crummy
yes.
stock. Maybe Alpha doesn't even play and I've wasted my money. But
Now my worry for this stock is that we might be buying a split too early.
you think so?
I don't think he's going to make a roster for regional 2
Yeah,
for the second split.
yeah. I'm curious who it would be. I know that there's been like teams here and there that there's like rumblings like, ooh, are Ninjas in Pajamas gonna make a move? It seems like they're not going to.
Mhm.
We already kind of know what the big movers and shakers are going to be here. I feel like a lot of the moves this trade window are going to be like young players around the edges, kind of the group below the top group is going to be kind of reconfiguring. You know what I mean?
Yes. I got a question for you.
I have an answer.
If you could see Alpha 54 going to a team currently, is there a team in mind? Let's just say you have to pick one, right?
Yeah.
And you have to sub out a player for Alpha 54 in Europe. Let's just keep it in Europe. Um, you know, where do you see him going? Because I don't know. I mean, realistically, he's probably going to go to a top 6 team. I
Mhm.
couldn't imagine going to like you said, a roster that isn't backed by a big, fairly established org.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So what are your thoughts? Could you see Alpha 54 on any rosters?
Well, I think you and I are on the same wavelength. Where my immediate thought is that like team who's right at the cusp, who needs like a veteran who's been there and done that to kind of push them over the edge. I think about like the 100% of the world, or the start points of the world, maybe because
Right.
they're fresh in the mind because of Eugen. But there's that way that you could go, which probably makes the most sense. But there's also this other piece of it where it's like, does he just totally zag the other way and be like, hey, Rusty's and Mozzarella, heard you looking for a third? Like two
Yeah.
young guns be like, let me come in, chip on my shoulder, show you guys the ropes. We get in the
Yep.
gym, show you how to scrim and be a pro. I don't know if he's at the point where he can be the needle mover in a way that is impactful enough to break into that top 4. So
Hmm.
I kind of think that that's a less likely outcome. But yeah, maybe it's one of those situations where it's like, you know, a Chronic and Matane, they got the points, so they're kind of in the mix, they're in the chase, and he's like, "Look, let me come in." A Chronic is a player who has been with some big orgs before. Maybe he kind of has a little bit of that buy-in. Maybe there's some, Saudi org out there who's looking to, continue to move their puzzle pieces in here or whatever. I don't
Hmm.
know. What do you see?
For I'm gonna throw out a name that I really think could happen. I think Ninjas in Pajamas with Itachi Nas, Oski,
Mm-hmm.
uh, a pretty bad split for them. Not great. With I guess the level of names that are on that roster, I
Yeah.
think a lot of people would have them finishing higher. I mean, listen, they were one spot out of making the major, so it's not like they were that bad. But also, I think, are you there to eke into the major? Are you there to win the major? And I
Yeah.
think, you know, Itachi and Nas speak French. I think you could substitute Oski out with Alpha 54. And all of a sudden, that is a roster that I could see winning championships.
And the reporting from Achilles, from what I had seen, was Ninjas in Pajamas, I'm paraphrasing, but aren't looking to make a move unless Oski gets poached by somebody.
Hmm. Sure.
It seems like that probably won't happen. GK are going to stick together. That seems like kind of the team where it's like, could they? But that would be running back Oxygen. You probably don't do that with Joyo and Archie.
Hmm.
So that's not the roster where Oski would go. when I was kind of hearing the rumblings, there was a part of me that was like, ooh, like Oski to Twisted Minds? Is that like a world that we're living in? I don't think so, but maybe you just say like, hey, like we're doing offense, let's do offense. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
But I think that team would probably struggle more than the current iteration. I like Atomic with that roster. Maybe there's a world where he tries to grab like some of the other young English players. Maybe it's like, hey, Toxic and Goffs or Resi or some
Right.
iteration of like those names. But I don't know if ninjas are gonna make a move, but they're kind of suspended in that weird purgatory of like too good to break it up, but also not good enough to be satisfied. They're like suspended, you know?
Right. Right. You either need to go all in and we're really going to go for it, or like you're paying all these players so much money that like, hey,
But
come on.
but it's kind of like, but they're also kind of stuck because it's like, what's your move? Like where's the upgrade? I feel really good about like I still love Itachi. I don't see a world where you're like, yes, there's a move out there that is more than lateral moving off of Itachi. I don't think Alpha 54 is the name there. But even with like Oski and Nas, I just don't know, even if it's not totally working, like where are you gonna go besides them, you know?
Mm-hmm. Sure. I don't think Oski's fell quite a bit in my stock portfolio.
Me too.
Sadly, I held on to it a bit too long. Um, it's like it's a bit, it could be like the Radosin situation. He could move to a different team and then look like a stud.
Yeah.
But for right now on this team, it is plummeting in my eyes. This is a sell and sell hard while he's on this team.
Other penny stocks.
I had a Chronic. We talk
Ooh.
about Starpoint and Eugen. Uh, yeah, I was, a Chronic was when he was on Team Liquid was again considered one like a great player, and we kind of always talked about a Tau, Oski, a Chronic, and like how you could kind of substitute one or the other for best player on the team for a while, anyways. I think his stock has gone down a little bit, but um, I would say he's probably a penny stock at this point.
Mm.
Maybe you could argue he's, Starpoint had some good finishes. There was a few series where they took like Vitality to game 6.
Yep.
And like I don't know, maybe he's not a penny stock, but I think a Chronic could still make some moves, and he's looked good. I don't think Starpoint does as well if there's another player on that team. I don't think Eugen can carry a team to top 8 finishes. So, or just one
Yeah.
player, anyways. So yeah, I think a Chronic is pretty under the radar right now.
Well, and another player who's around the same kind of point in his career journey here, one of my penny stocks is a player like Com, where the tech
Oh yeah,
situation, partially their fault with the results, but also partially, some growing pains with registering for our tournaments and whatnot. I'm so interested to see what direction that tech team is going to go. It seems like Evo is out exploring his options, but there's also been rumblings that Com is one of the names listed as trying out with the Shopify Rebellion duo that we have seen for a really long time.
yep,
If we're talking about like you're looking at the landscape, if you're Two Piece and Parth, and I might disagree with you, but let's say they want to stick it out another split and keep going with this, and you're like,
sure,
who is a player that we can get in here who's going to give us a little bit of that like dog nature, a little bit of that like let's go, we can hang with anybody, we can beat anybody, who will find and fit his role, a smart player who's still mechanical. Like Com fits that bill for me. I feel like he could be a real difference maker in getting them over the hurdle and getting into a major where a
yeah.
lot of other players I wouldn't feel as strongly about it.
Com's a great pick, by the way, because yeah, I forgot about him. I forgot where he went. I was like, oh yeah, I forgot about Com.
Yeah.
And yeah, and his play style really can fit into a lot of different team comps, like you were
Hmm.
saying. So, yeah, that's a great buy for an IPO
I felt
or
like
for
he
a
was
penny stock. Sorry.
I felt like he was the best player on OG Esports. So not too far removed from making all of those majors.
Hmm.
Um, any more names on your list, or would you like to talk about the diversity of your portfolio?
We can move on.
Okay.
I just want to say I I've gone up and down about this, and I've finally decided I'm never going to touch any of the Shopify roster players or the roster because I have bought into them so many times, and I've gotten burned as many times as I bought into them. So I'm done with that roster. I'm not buying any of the stock, and I don't want to even think about where the players are going to go. And until Two Piece and Parth decide to split, I'm done with it. All right. I don't honestly. Justin might be like you could say like the worst player on that roster, but I'm not. I just do not believe in the duo of Two Piece and Parth. So just wanted to throw that out there because I've just been thinking about it, and at times I've been like maybe I should buy in a little bit more. I've made that mistake too many times, and I'm done with it.
I think you and I are at the same place with it. We're not too far removed from Two Piece basically being the hottest. He was the Eugen of North America a couple of seasons ago, where he was like the next guy,
Yes.
and he's kind of has not risen to the levels that we had anticipated from him for sure.
What do you think is the move for a player like him where he could be the next face of NA Rocket League? And at one point was, the up and coming, this is the next guy. What do you think is the move?
I think that ship has sailed. I struggle to see a world where Two Piece is the first best player, the first most important player
Hmm.
um, on a roster that makes a major. I feel like it would have to be an upgrade. Of course, it's not happening now, but beforehand, when you're just like, you're in the trade machine, just like thinking of ideas. For me, it was like, oh, maybe like Ultimates goes sideways, and like that's a place where Chronic kind of comes back, and he's like, I'm here, I got the experience, like let's run it again. Former teammates getting back together. But there, you want to talk about teams in a tough spot. We were just talking about a team like Ninjas. Shopify have the points, right? So you don't want to like totally blow it up. It's too early to do that. Also, my understanding, just like through the grapevine, is that it's an org that like the players like playing for. They're well taken care of. There's solid contracts. There's a good infrastructure. They pay their creators. They're doing off-season tournaments. Like it's a good situation, it's like a Boston Celtics kind of situation where it's like I like the franchise. We have like strong bones or whatever, and there's a lot of
Hmm.
differences between those, but it's not like you're like I can't wait to be a Sacramento King. You know what I mean? Like people want to stay with Shopify.
Yeah.
So if like you were talking about it, like is Justin the worst player on the team? And if Justin stays, then like, is it Two Piece being like, I want to go somewhere else? Or are they finally going to rip the band aid off and be like, hey, Parth, we need somebody who's a little more consistent on the defensive end? I just don't really know what they do. And maybe they're stuck in a way where they're just like, you know, one final go. Let's just run it back for old time's sake.
Yeah.
Justin's like, don't worry, guys. I have experience overstaying a roster's welcome. We can
Mm,
definitely run this another split. Like, maybe
yeah.
that's just where they end up because it's easiest.
Right. I agree with you. And now that you say that, Justin does have a way of just sticking on a roster too long.
Hey, just,
Wow. That's a great point.
it's part of the charm. But I really don't know what they do, and I also don't totally know what they are. And also like, you know a big part of success in Rocket League is the mental piece of it. Like I feel like I'm a broken record talking to myself about like how important mentality is at this point, but like take a team like Luminosity who end up going to round 5. Like that team
Mm,
is not better than wild card. They are competitive against Chiefs, like, but they don't have the pedigree or the caliber of players to be beating a team like wild card if you were to like run that simulation a bunch. But they felt the pressure and Luminosity did not. And to flip that to Shopify, I feel like that's a team where like they come into a lot of series and it's like I at least I'm projecting, but I think they go into a lot of series and they're like not like we're obviously going to win this. It's more like I hope we can win this. Like they drop a
Right.
series to gas, three like retired dudes who aren't even scrimming, and it's like
Yeah.
how can you take how can we take you seriously, but like how can they take themselves seriously if you're
Right.
consistently dropping stuff like that? You know what I mean?
Yeah. A team that isn't scrimming, isn't practicing together, just beat you guys who have been sweating it out, putting in all the hours, and you still lose to them.
And not even it's not even really that close. But then
Right.
they turn around and they, make a top 6 and it's like, okay, Shopify, I don't even know, like you're
Right.
so volatile. You're a worse version of Space Station. Where it's just like, I don't
Right.
know. I don't know what you guys are trying to do.
Shopify finished fifth in a major two of
Mm-hmm.
last season, so they almost made it into the major. So yeah, it's again, I'm not touching that stock.
Nor am I. Let's talk about your portfolio in general. We're talking portfolio diversification, and this is really just a quick exercise to get into the minds, get under the hoods of how the two of us see the game. So, when you're taking a step back and looking at your portfolio overall, what are you filled with the most of? Do you have a lot of savvy veterans who have been there and done that? Do you have a lot of young mechanical players? Do you have a lot of players from South America? Like where is
Mhm.
your portfolio? Where are the biggest pieces of pie for you?
I would say my portfolio currently is a lot of younger stocks,
Mm,
right? A lot of young stocks. We got maybe you could say a little bit of like higher risk, higher reward.
yes.
I wouldn't say it's get rich quick. I do
Hmm.
believe in the length of which I will hold these stocks. I do believe in the long run I will be profitable. I have players that I wouldn't say they are the flashiest. I don't think I am buying too much of Kofor, even though I do believe he will be a player that is going to make major. I think his stock is hot. I am going to buy a little bit of it, but I think I'm putting a lot of my money into some of the players that are up and coming, very smart. I think they're the players that are good at 50-50s. Those are
Mm,
the type of players that I want. I
strong
want players
50
like
players.
5 up. Okay?
Oh yeah.
I want players like Nico. I want
Oh.
players like Matter over in NA.
Oh
I
yeah.
want those type of players. I'm getting in early, okay? These aren't, again, you can buy the Nupos, you can buy the Zens, you buy them, you hold them, and then
Hmm.
by the end you're gonna have championships and rings and all that. But these are the ones that, dang, you got them early, and that is what I is a lot of my portfolio. I have a few veterans, but for the most part, that is my portfolio.
You've always been ahead of the curve on buying in before the rest of us do, buying early and kind of being that visionary. I have like such a low risk tolerance with my portfolio. I'm basically over here like buying government bonds. I'm just
Mm.
like, I'm just investing and I'm just waiting for the fractional dividends to come in. We're talking Raise Bulls, we're talking Brad, we're talking
Ooh,
Reddles, like these guys who are just like, look, it's not the flashiest stock in the world. I'm not going to make a ton
right.
of money off of this, but I just have a bunch of dudes where I'm like, major experience is super important to me. I feel like the intangible stuff, like body language and like how you're interacting with your teammates and vocality, like is very important. Like that's what makes me stick with a player like Drufinio. I feel like he is perfect for like the Furia ecosystem of like
Mm-hmm.
we're gonna talk smack the whole time and be loud and in your face and expressive about it. I have a lot of those players, but then on the other end, I'm thinking if I'm gonna be super, structured and rigid with a lot of that. The swings I'm going to take, I'm going for the rarest skill in Rocket League, which is the ability to just score consistently and score easy goals. We're talking the Drollies, the Zens of the world. Nalpo is there for me, although his boost and movement stats, it's almost like he's cheating. He's like a good stats bad team guy. He's better than that, but like he's less efficient than those players, at least as I look at it, with some more
Hmm.
gaps. But like Nalpo, that ability to like when he has the ball, all three defenders are looking at him and he still might score. Like those are the kind of investments where it's like those are the difference making players. Like a Eugen, maybe he could be that. I don't think that he's at that level just yet, but like that's what excites me about a player like Ruas as well, where he can be the best player in a grand finals. I think that
Yeah.
that list is not super long.
Hey, and listen, having players that are making majors consistently, players that can finish. Hey, you're in for the long run. All right, your stock's only gonna go up.
That's I'm a Costco stock kind of guy, you know? It's going to be
Mm.
around for a while. I'm going to get dividends pretty consistently. That's the kind of world I'm living in. All right. We've hit the hour mark. So let's get to our big game here. Uh, Buy, sell, hold. We're going to just run through some teams, some players, some situations, and talk about what our strategy is moving forward with these stocks. Let me start with a specific one. Dignitas to make the Raleigh major. Are you buying, selling, or holding on that stock?
This is a tough one. I
Yeah.
think they will be either the fourth or 15.
Mm,
So I'm part of me wants to hold. I'm leaning towards sell. Um, I am a little worried about the roster moves that are going to happen in the off season. Yeah, you're going to have Gentlemates and Ninjas in Pajamas, who I think are going to come out stronger than they previously did. Geek A, I think, or however you pronounce what
yeah.
is it? Geek
I think it's GK, but I for the
GK.
longest said GK like you.
Um, and I think GK, I think they are going to have a good chance of making the major as well. I think uh, they didn't start off the season great, but I think they've found their stride. So I would sell that personally.
Yeah. I think it's a wise move, and the other thing to consider here is I think we just kind of pencil in a lot of these teams, but Europe is really strong, and I'm not saying it's going to happen, but the only team that I have in pen right now is Carmine Corps. I mean, even a team like Vitality, we only have three splits and they're all Swiss. Like, you could be on the wrong end of one or two splits here, and all of a sudden your back's against the wall. So they're in the mix, of course, and then you can go like pretty deep, and we're probably going to add a few more teams here to your point. I am going to hold. I had a good bit of Dignitas stock before the season started. I bought a little bit more pre-major just because I'm a believer in Abjack at LAN. I walked away a little
Hmm.
disappointed. I think I might have lost a little money on that. But I also bought a little bit of Stizzy. I
Yeah.
think that he is an exciting player, and the thing for me is their ability to communicate, and also the fact that if we look at Split One as kind of a benchmark here, typically they run through Swiss. So you want to talk about a team where it's like, look, if we can just kind of consistently get points here and just get a big win here or there around the edges to kind of work our way into that fourth spot there, I
Yep.
think that that's like a practical move for Dignitas. Not the highest ceiling in the world, but like their floor, I feel like Dignitas are pretty solidly in a position to make the major. They're just like in the mix in a way that I feel more confident in than some of our other teams.
That's fair. And I think if a team's found the formula to make the major, ultimately, what do we care about when we're buying stocks? It just keeps going up. And
Hey,
that, hey, if you got the juice,
keep it
we're all
going,
here for it.
you know?
Yeah.
Well,
So
what
you
about
could be right on that.
a team like NRG? Just in general, not necessarily to make the Raleigh Major, but where do you see North America's number one seed coming out of Birmingham here? Were you impressed? Of course, they end up getting a pretty solid finish, but by their standards, I was a little underwhelmed by their form.
Yeah, I mean, I'm buying it. Listen, the stock dipped after the tournament. Um, People are saying, are they still the same NRG? Where is Ultimates gonna take a couple of these regionals? I think NRG's gonna 3-0 this second split here. So I think it's a good time to buy NRG, honestly. I just don't see anyone coming close. They still have, in my mind, three of the top five players in NA. So it's an instant buy. What are your thoughts on it?
No, I agree with you. I don't know if I'm as excited as you are, just because I think their stock is like the price is so high on it
Right.
that like if you're gonna make any money off of it, you kind of have to like they really have to shine brighter than they have. I mean, they end up making a top four here, and they had an excellent split one like in the online portion. So like for them to improve on what they were, they're going to have to get a little bit better here. But to your point, I feel like a buy is kind of a smart position to take just because a lot of people who are a lot more panicked and a lot more prisoners of the moment are selling off
Yes.
here. Ultimates is the exciting new team. Complexity are retooling. Space Station have retooled. So I think a lot of people are just selling off of some NRG just because they want to get their grimy little hands into some of our other teams here.
Yeah, it's time to buy in the dip, as we
I
say in the biz.
that's one of the first rules of investing is buy the dip.
hmm
Buy high, sell low. That's my strategy.
Yeah. I want to get your buy, sell, hold on complexity with Frosty.
You know, I'm gonna buy. I'm gonna buy because not just because of Frosty, I'm honestly buying because of Diaz. I walked away from the major being like, I don't really know what this complexity roster is. They were the only team with a negative shooting differential coming in. Like all the other these other
hmm
teams are just like blasting the field. You look at some like abusers like Carmine Core who are like plus 225 shots over their competition and complexity come in here at like negative 45. So it's like, are they even that good? They're 11-5 on the split. So basically, all they were doing was just making it through Swiss and then just like losing pretty quickly. But it's like, hey, it got the job done. But
Yeah.
I walked away from Birmingham being like, man, Diaz is the exciting young player that we anticipated that he could be. I thought that CRR was still in excellent form. And I think them moving off of Raise Bull, like with some of the stuff, grass is always greener and maybe they'll
Yeah.
regret it. But if you're going to plug him in, a player like Frosty, I think is one of the most exciting players who is on the market. So I think it's a good move for them.
So you're in the buy.
I'm buying.
You're buying. How much are you buying?
Um, I would say that I'm probably going to be more bullish on it than most just because now they kind of have a footing that they couldn't previously. Like they had Diaz with that roster on complexity and Sam last season, couldn't really make a splash. They were kind of boxed out by the top two teams. And then they get here, and it's like this is clearly the worst team in North America. Even Gen G will probably perform better than them. But I was super impressed by complexity. Even in their losses, I came away being like that was a solid performance. So I think a lot of people just kind of look at them as an afterthought. It's not like a super sexy
hmm
stock. A lot of people probably just gloss over it.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna buy now just because I think a lot of people are probably nervous about like how is Frosty going to mesh with this roster.
Yeah, I would say I might be one of those people that's a little bit nervous about Frosty. I mean, obviously, Raze Bull was such a good player, and I still think is a player that will be good on another team. But you might have convinced me to move this to a buy. I was leaning towards a hold,
Mm-hmm.
uh, just because it is a gamble. Um, I'm curious what you think the threshold or the ceiling of this team is. Like, do you see this as a team that could win an NA regional?
I do. I think look, one of the things that they struggled with is beating the teams ahead of them. They were one of those teams that would really punish all the teams that they should be beating, but then they were unable to beat the NRGs and the Ultimates of the world.
Right.
Frosty is unafraid. Like Frosty is coming in here thinking that he can beat anybody. And for a team that time and time again, my biggest concern with them was their inability to finish like in pressure situations. I feel like Frosty is this injection of just like not going to be deterred at all by looking across the pitch and seeing beast mode. That's a team
Mm-hmm.
that really took that SSG team last split in the open
Yep.
one, took NRG to the brink. They were running laps over some very good teams in that region. So I think that he is a little, excuse my not total language, but brings this little element of like an MFer to a roster that really needs that extra juice, you know?
Right. 100%. And to your point, complexity, Regional 1, they go out third place, lose to NRG. Regional 2, they go out third place, lose to NRG. Regional 3, they go out in fifth, but they lost to NRG and then Genji, who went on that magical run. So, really, I mean, they just need that little spark that's going to get them past NRG. And yeah, I think Frosty definitely could be that guy.
I talked you into it.
You really did.
Well, joke's on you because
You
I'm
sold me.
selling, you fool. No, I'm kidding.
Oh,
Talk you into it and then pull. No, I'm buying. I'm excited about that roster. And one final, like, at least for me to tie a bow on it, NA is not that dangerous in my eyes. Europe, good luck. You know,
right.
if you're the ascend of the world or whatever, and you're like, this is our split. If you're 100%, good freaking luck, man,
Right.
because there are so many teams that are dangerous in that realm. But you look over at North America, and it's like, I guess the question that you're asking yourself is like, can we consistently beat the Gen Gs of the world? I think you can with
Right.
that roster.
Hmm. Yep,
Um,
I agree.
let's talk about Furia as a major team moving forward. Maybe a different way to frame this question, if you'll allow me to be so bold. Are you buying or selling on the possibility that this Furia roster could ever win a major?
How many years are we talking? Because, I mean, if we're talking in the next 2 years, I don't think this roster is going to ever win a major.
This three players, as long as they last.
Are they ever going to win a major?
Yes.
I
Lost,
would
Yan,
sell
and
that
Drafinio.
in a heartbeat.
Yeah?
I think if they have the right day, they can beat some teams. There's just going to be a European team or NA when NA's on, that they're just not going to be able to get past in my eyes. There's just too many good teams. I think individually they're all very good players, but unfortunately, I just don't think even on their best day that they are going to be winning a major.
I think you got to walk away disappointed that Lost had it going in the way that he did. And then your other guys couldn't had events when you like if you take you stack all their events together, all their majors, Yan and Drafinio,
Hmm.
these are probably in the lower half of their
Yeah.
showings of their quality. That's got to be disappointing because Lost was really feeling it. That's one of those teams where it's kind of like it's like clockwork with them. It's the same thing where it's like they're going to run over South America. They're going to play so many ranked twos and grind so hard before the major. They're going to blitz through the Swiss. They're going to beat one team. And then once they get to top six, top four, they're going to bomb out. It's just like,
Yeah.
it's every time. And it's kind of like it's being super nitpicky because it's like how many teams are consistently making top six. Like Furia are always above that threshold.
Right.
But at the same time, it's like how many times are you going to be satisfied with being almost good enough? You know what I mean?
Right.
You
Yeah.
almost blow it up just because you don't just want to be stuck in purgatory. But at the same time, like maybe their mindset looking at it is we're always super close. If you get a champ Sunday, like maybe it's just going to break one of these times.
Yeah. I mean, but I do think the top six is very solidified. Like we always see Falcons up there.
Mm-hmm.
Carmine Corp's going to be there. It seems like Vitality's always there.
Yep.
And then NRG or whatever team Beast Mode and Daniel are on. So, to me, they'll I feel like always be right around that top six. And like you saw this tournament, they're making top four. But like I think even if they made to a grand finals, I just don't think they have enough firepower to get it past.
I agree. I think they have a big mental mountain that is hard for them to summit. Where they get into
Hmm.
some of these, you see Carmine Core, and you're just like, we had a good tournament, we had a good run.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Hmm.
What about Oh, so I don't know if we decided. So you're selling on them as a major team. What about just like
Yeah.
them in totality? I guess it's kind of tough because it's like, what is the expectation of this
Well,
team?
they keep winning Sam. Like
Yep,
they didn't drop
undefeated in
a
Sam.
regional. Right. So it's like I think they're at their ceiling right now. Like they'll always kind of be maybe get a top four, but which top four to major, that's no small task. But I just don't see them going any further. I don't see them ascending to a team that we're like, wow, this is clearly the best team, which I think you could see even like Vitality who didn't have like the best major. I think they could turn it on this next split and all of a sudden by the end they look like clearly they're the best team. And you could really see that with NRG, you could see that with Falcons, but with Fury I just don't see it.
I totally agree. It's tough for me to see a world where Furia are the best team. I could see it from a ton of different rosters, but for them, they're never going to be in that S tier for me. They'll always be an A.
Yeah.
Another emerging region team here to talk about, Twisted Minds. What's your strategy on them moving forward here?
I think it's been good. Honestly, them and Falcons being in the same region, I think they're going to make each other better.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever the saying is, diamonds cut diamonds sharper.
Iron
I think
sharpens
that's the saying.
iron.
Something like that. Diamonds cut diamonds. Um, I think them being in the same region is going to make both of them better. But with this Twisted Minds, they have one small flaw,
Mm.
and I think that player's Atomic. I think his positioning is garbage, and I will never buy any Twisted Mind stocks while he is on the team.
Did you see that he was very upset by our top 25 list from the Wave Dash podcast?
Yes, I saw that, and I am not going to change my mind. I'm sticking by what I said. So, what are your thoughts on it, though? What are your thoughts on Twisted Minds?
Look, I I came away with a poor taste in my mouth for a bunch of reasons. I really I was surprised that the Furious series seemed like one that suited their play style, where it's like we're gonna go up and down, we're gonna turn this into a really fast match, see who can catch
Hmm.
each other on counters, and their offense really was not that potent until the final game where they basically were going to get eliminated anyways, and then they were down like 4-1 with like a minute left, and then it's 3-4, and they're like really trying, and they get a couple great looks, and it's like, where was this at the beginning of this series? Like, you guys could have really
Right.
had something here. I was disappointed by a player like Rise, who I felt like on a lot of these where it's like, if Rise is your third man on the goal line and you like go backboard, like you have a pretty good chance that he's going to misread that and you're going to be able to double it in. A player like Atomic, who you talk about positioning, like with him, seemed like time and time again just caught a little too far forward. And I try and be like not I feel the same way you do about it, but like a team like Falcons, everybody was like Falcons are so bad on defense. There's part of me where it's like it's almost it's a decision that you make where it's like if you're going to keep your third man, if you're going to keep your line that high, you're just kind of you have to be at peace with the fact that there's going to be a couple full field ones that you just give up. Like it's just you can't have it both ways. And
Mm-hmm.
there's part of
Yep.
me with Twisted Minds where it's like maybe there's some of that with the positioning where it's like if we're going to go this fast and shoot this many times, we just have to come to terms with the fact that we're going to leave some gaps. All of that dancing around it to say, like they were leaving some huge holes defensively. And again, like Naupo is so good offensively, um, but it's kind of he's not this. So I want to be careful with this like comparison, but like a player like LaMelo Ball in the NBA where it's like LaMelo had 35 points again and it's like, look, if you're going to let him shoot 30
Right.
times a game, yeah, he's probably going to put up some sick stats.
Yeah.
But there are
He's
some
gonna have a
things,
sick highlight reel
yeah, you
regardless.
know, like the montage, you can put it on Twitter and be like, LaMelo Ball's a problem, but like I'm not worried about him in the playoffs. You know what I mean? And I feel
Right.
similar about Naupo, even small things like maybe it was a misunderstanding. My read as it was happening, and I thought that I was sneaky and caught it, and then everybody online had caught it as well. But him not giving fist bumps at that loss with Furia, I saw it and I was like, oh, like
Oh shit.
Naupo, salty. What
Yeah.
is this?
Yeah.
Seems like he
To be
made
fair, we've
peace.
seen the old Queso roster. We saw Vatira kind of be the same way, where at times he was kind of just head down, like, and then people had to like tap him 10 times, and he was like, "Okay, fine, I'll give you Nux." So
Zen's
I
had one
think
of
that
those
might be like
before. Head in the
right
hands,
when
like, you know, people are just like patting him. Yeah, but
right they got that winner's mentality of like taking it personal and like how yeah, I'm not shaking your hand, like you just beat me. Yeah, you kind
poor
of need that though. I don't know.
I guess it's a buyer's choice because I looked at it and I was like, that is like not in my portfolio. You know what I
Mm,
mean? It's not even
okay,
about the money for me. I'm an ethical you know,
right.
investor. So
Straight shooters. Yeah,
exactly. I'm not in it for the profit. I'm in it for love of the game. Um,
yeah.
could I ask you about the goat, Monkey Moon? Where are
The
you at?
goat Monkey Moon.
Where are you at? Everybody's like, he's a slow starter. Wait till the world
Mm-hmm.
championship. Are we
Mm-hmm.
giving him too much rope by allowing him to have stinkers throughout the season and just wait until the world championship?
That's a good question. Are we giving him too much? I don't think so. I think if he doesn't do anything this split and then he just comes in the major and then like wins it, I don't know what that's gonna say, but I do think he needs to that team needs to figure it out. I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt of
Yeah.
it's a new roster. They're still trying to figure out the synergy. And now they've had a split. Now it's time for them to start winning some regionals again.
But Dano, Carmine Core's a new roster.
That's true. That's true. I think they found their synergy very quickly.
Mm.
Now, I would say somebody like Cassio, the coach of Vitality, might be like, guys, let's take our time. Let's do it the right way.
Yeah.
Let's not rush into things. We are in it for the long run. They can
Mm-hmm.
have the first split, but we're going to iron things
Let him
out
have it.
my way. I'm going to get the whiteboard ready. Writing on a whiteboard, it's not typing on a computer.
Not at all.
Okay? It is a long process, but there's something about it. It's the old school way. It's made,
Mm.
I was going to say made in America, but it's made in French. And in Rocket League, that is the highest quality you can get. So
Mm.
I would say Cassio. Oh, wait, I'm thinking about Pharaoh with the whiteboard. Anyways, Vitality and Cassio, which, by the way, Cassio could return. He could unretire, and I still think he could be on a top 6 team.
He's a hooper.
Regardless, though, I think Vitality's going to do it the right way, and they're going to come out and they're going to They're going to win some regionals. I'm saying at least one regional, if not two, for this next split.
Semper Esports legend Casio.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Former exotic teammate. Interesting situation there. I'm in the same spot that you are, where it's like this Vitality team. I thought that they were the best team coming out of Swiss. Like leading into playoffs, I was like, this is my number one power ranked team. And with real aspirations to win this whole thing. Of course, Ultimates like really figured them out in a way that was like kind of surprising for both sides. Like good win for Ultimates, but also a weird loss for Vitality. And then for them to repeat the exact same way, go up 2-0, and then just kind of collapse against Furia. See, that Furia win, it's one of those situations where for them mentally, it's like they had the long war all last season against Vitality. So they can kind of see themselves winning that one. But like
Mm-hmm.
Carmine Core, Furia can't do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, Vitality, like, I think it's one of those where I'm guilty of this, and like the community is probably guilty of this in this competitive infrastructure and like every other like competition as well. But it's like if you
Mm-hmm.
don't win the whole thing, it's like what are you doing wrong?
Right.
Maybe Vitality, like you had a really, by your standards, underwhelming split one online, and then you come to this major and you look pretty darn good and you lose to two good teams. So maybe it's just one of those, you know? Um,
Right.
so I think I'm probably going to hold on them because I think there's a lot of fools on both sides who are buying, waiting for world championship, and then also selling, waiting for world championship. So
I agree. I agree. This one is all over the place.
a lot of
Got to
movement.
stay strong.
A lot of
Yep.
movement. Um, I had an open-ended one for you here. I
Okay.
said pick a player from OCE that you're buying or selling. Who's on your mind?
Ooh. I said Hunter before. I do think, yeah, Hunter maybe not the best major, but I still like his gameplay. I still think if he's on the right roster, I think that's the OC team that could make a top 8.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm still buying Hunter. I'm still going for it, even though I think his stock might have gone down just a tad. But a red day is followed by a green day, as I like to say.
I think that's a good mental attitude to have about the situation. Look, I'm still excited about Hunter. Like one poor event isn't the end all be all. The fact that Chiefs were able to kind of come out of that like cartoon fight cloud that was the Oceania region from last
Yeah,
season
yeah,
was impressive. Um,
yeah.
and like in another world, maybe you draw Team Secret in round three, and you don't get absolutely mowed over by Furia and Twisted Minds. You have a little bit more like a respectable situation, and then it's like,
Right.
okay, Chiefs are kind of cobbling this together. They had a terrible draw, and maybe it's just one of those where you chalk it up to like we got to come back better than this. I'm gonna sell wild card, just all of it that I have. I'm just out of the wild card business. I think
Wow.
eventually this is gonna come to a point where either Torsos is gonna retire, they're gonna move off of Fever, or Banana Head is gonna dip and be like, I'm gonna find a different roster. And I think
Wow.
it's gonna come sooner than people might think, one of those eventualities. So I'm just out of the business because if you're buying on their needle mover is making a
Hmm.
top eight. And if it's a question of do they make a top eight at Raleigh or the World Championship, or do they fall apart in some way, I'm just gonna sell and get out of the business because I just don't think it's gonna happen.
Your forecast is looking bad for them.
I agree. Yes, that's an apt way of putting it.
Everyone else is zigging and you're zagging. Everyone's like, Wild card took him to game 5.
I
Carmine
think
Corp.
that was a pretty solid, Jerry Seinfeld adjacent um, impression. And also, there's a lot of
Hmm.
suckers out there like Geo who are just gonna gobble it up as soon as it hits the market. So
My
I think
God.
I can sell at a pretty high price.
Absolutely. I like that. That's great. That's a great sell. Put that on the board.
Can I float a name by you that is probably one of the players who is the biggest enigma for me? I could look at it for 15 minutes and I don't know what to make of it. What are you
Okay.
doing with a player like Oli?
Ooh, Oli. That's a name that I have held that stock for a while. I've sold that stock. I bought it again. Um, I Oli's a little bit too inconsistent for me in order for me to say like, oh, for sure buy him. I think he has his games. I would say, yeah, at times he can really with that GK team like really will them to some wins, especially late. I feel like he has a little bit of the clutch genes in him. But I'm a little bit worried about inconsistency. I think there's a few players that I would kind of compare him to. I think Stizzy can be a bit like that. Stizzy can look great at times, but I think he's pretty inconsistent as well.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I'm at the hold stage with him. I'm at the wait and see. I don't, in terms of like what the GK roster is capable of. I think if they ever made a top four, I think they're a bit like the Ultimates, where it's like they could make a run out of 20 tournaments. They might make one run to the top four, but like ultimately, I don't think Oli's going to be a person that's going to be raising any trophies anytime soon.
They're in a weird spot. GK is a roster, right? Because we want to talk about a deep Europe. I don't even know if you and I mentioned GK in the mix there. Of course, they are in the mix, but like,
Mm-hmm.
if I had to choose who I think, like, if out of 100, like between Dignitas and GK, which of those two teams is going to make Raleigh, I'm probably going like 60-40, 65-35 for Dignitas.
Mm-hmm.
Um, GK have the God run here, the only blemish on Carmine Core's resume for the season. Um, I just don't know if they're going to be able to get it done again, and maybe we'll be wrong, you know. But
I hope so. I think I I think it's a 50-50 GK or Dignitas for Raleigh. I really like what I've seen from GK. I think Joyo's playing out of his mind, honestly.
yeah,
Uh, Joyo's probably a stock that I think would fit well into your portfolio, but I might steal that and buy that stock as well. And I think again, it's going to be a stock that, like you said, he's a major player.
mm-hmm.
He's got some mechanics, but he's also a player that in the long run is going to turn out great. So, um, yeah, I think Joyo is going to be added to my portfolio.
Hey, thank you for saying that. That's a name who fits exactly into my portfolio of those like magical offensive players. Joyo is very high
Hmm.
up that list, so thank you for that shout out. Uh,
Multiple teams, by the way,
oh
multiple
yeah,
teams, and he keeps making majors. So, yeah.
even a player like Seiko for me, I think deserves a little bit of. There's a sprinkling of him in there. But
Hmm.
yeah, with Oli, I think I'm just gonna hold. I think you and I are probably a little more heavily invested than your general community member. I feel like a lot of people think GK and Oli is always the third player, right? Because Joyo and Archie as the
Yeah.
duo, they're both personalities who are very well known. They're veterans who have been there and done that. Everybody has a good understanding and relationship with those two players as they see it. But Oli is kind of like an unknown for a lot of people.
Hmm.
So I think that he's a stock who doesn't have a lot of daily movement. I think the Oli
Yeah.
stock just kind of cruises along there a little bit. So I think I'm
Yeah.
gonna hold.
Fair enough.
Any names on your list that you want to get to last here before we get to the final and most exciting portion of our podcast?
Yeah, there's one player that he's a little bit of a veteran player. I want to get your thoughts on Chicago.
Ooh.
And, I think he's been on teams that have done well in the past.
Yeah.
It seems like he's maybe getting towards the end of his career. I could be wrong in saying that, but yeah, I want to get your thoughts on him.
I like Chicago. I think that back in the day, like the thing that really excited me about him was his passing. He was one of the best at finding a teammate in stride. Like not just like
Hmm.
hitting the ball to them and they have to like adjust, like in like a football reference, putting it directly in their hands.
Yep.
He was so good at that. And I feel like we saw a little bit of a rejuvenation of that with this Kofor roster with 9 lives. But Chicago is one of those players where like once a series at least there's like just one of those moments where he'll like try and shoot or try and pass or try and do something defensively where it's just like, oh, it seems like you kind of just like whiffed there like on what the
Right.
play
A
was.
complete panic play. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll just kind of cough one up. And I don't know. That's a struggle for me. I'm going to sell just because of what he is attached to. I am nervous about the idea of the trade window opens up and they say, hey, Hoxer's gone. Me and Kofor are
Hmm.
looking for a third. And
Right.
then it just didn't work out with Hoxer. We wish him the best. And then
Yeah.
Kofor leaves. And I guess Chicago and Hoxer are like, hey, what's up, buddy? Get the band back
Hey.
together. That's always a
Hmm.
situation that gives me pause where the team was not excited about teaming with one another.
Yeah.
And then they're like, never mind, let's do it again. And
But you don't
also,
see a future with Chicago on any type of top tier,
yeah,
top 4, top 5 team in NA. You don't really see that happening.
the only way that I would see it happening because like for me personally, I really like a player like Five Up. I really like a player like Wavy, who are those
Hmm.
kind of like next tier of like could they be the next Kofor for this roster? Um,
Yeah.
Despite me liking those players, I don't think that moves the needle enough for me to get into top four. For me, it is sitting down with Hoxer in a room and just watching tape on OG Esports from last season and being like, who is out there that we could grab? Do Justin or Com, or
Right.
is there some old wily vet out there who sees this as an opportunity to just like punish some of these young teams? That
Does
would be the
AJ does
yeah.
AJ make one last run?
So you want to shake off the rust and kind of get back into scrims?
Yeah.
Um,
It's funny. I really think AJ could come back and legitimately be on a top, 5, 6 team and potentially make a major
I
run.
thought he still had it with M80, but I appreciated that he was like, I just don't want to scrim every day anymore. And it's like, hey,
Yeah.
if you want to hang it up, hang it up. But Michael Jordan came out of retirement too, so.
Wow. AJ, the Michael Jordan of Rocket League.
Hey, we were
You
talking
heard it
before
here
the
first.
podcast about wanting to do more YouTube shorts. Maybe that's the clip that
Yeah, that is the clip for sure.